All right, guys, let's have a look at the Orlando Magic now, doing a quick fantasy check-in on them, focused a little bit around the trade deadline. Of course, the big name that people always want to talk about with the Magic and trades is Nikola Vucevic of the Magic, their center, who's putting up huge numbers, really killing it this year and been a massive return on investment from drafts. I do not see Vucevic getting traded this season. He's on a great contract. I think the Magic are still in the thought process they're going to push for the playoffs. I think that he's got an opportunity to be re-signed at a reasonable enough rate next year. I just don't see this team being proactive in dealing him away. They've made a lot of mistakes in the past in trading away players. Victor Oladipo, Tobias Harris. I just don't see them moving on. And even though if it is the right thing for them to do, what sort of value are they getting back for 2 months of Vucevic? Like, who is giving up this great value return package for him? Who needs him? And who is giving up this return? Now, if he does get dealt, it's almost a definite that his production is going to drop off. I don't see him going to a team where he's playing 30 minutes a night and being their best player. What team is investing in him, getting him at the trade deadline for that sort of, for whatever cost that's going to make it worthwhile for Orlando that's then going to play him 30 minutes? I don't see it. So that's a real risk for his value. But also just don't see the team that is going to want to pony up significant assets for Vooch. The guy I think is most likely to get dealt on this team is Terrence Ross as part of a package, whether that's alongside John Simmons. I could totally see that, to try and get themselves a point guard. That would be something they should be looking into doing. Now, Ross is putting up good numbers, and he is a fringe 12-team sort of guy who's providing three-pointers. He's scoring at a pretty decent clip. He gets steals at a decent level as well. The free throw percentage is really nice. Him going to another team probably does lessen that value. And I think he is probably the most likely guy to get dealt in this scenario. We'd want to watch to see what happens with who comes back, but surely they're looking to get their hands on a point guard. Maybe someone like Chris Dunn. Maybe Chicago looks to move on from him. Maybe I'm just obsessed with Chris Dunn. Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith, other names of young point guards. Alonzo Ball, maybe they get three-way involved in that if Anthony Davis ends up going to the Lakers. There's a real opportunity for someone to come in and put up massive top 100, top 70, top 50 type point guard value in Orlando if a trade does go down. I don't see Vucevic getting moved from this team. I can see Terrence Ross and John Simmons, who realistically he's not good. I wouldn't be stashing him in the hope for a trade. Losing two wings like that does open up minutes. You've got Melvin Frazier, who's really been a disaster this season, and you've got Wes Iwundu, who I think's been fairly solid in his role, and he could elevate himself up to be not a 12-team league guy, but maybe a 16-team league player if he was forced into a larger role. But it also would do stuff for Jonathan Isaac. Now, Isaac could be included in any sort of trade if you're looking for a bigger piece, because he is a really strong prospect and I do like him. But if he was to push into 31 minutes a night regularly, Isaac would be a must-roster guy, especially when you're searching for those defensive numbers, because we know that he can provide those relatively regularly. All right, guys, let's take a look at the Philadelphia 76ers now. Fantasy check-in time with them. Looking at the trade deadline, they're a team that probably does need to make some sort of a deal, whether that's to get another shooter on this team, another power forward, because Wilson Chandler doesn't really cut it to me. They're looking to get a guy in there, or just looking to help solidify this bench, who has been strengthened, I guess, with the recent addition of Corey Brewer, the solid play of Landry Shamet and Jonah Bolden, two rookies who have outperformed expectations, but there's still room there. I think TJ McConnell is probably the most likely player to get dealt here. It won't be Embiid, it won't be Simmons, it won't be Butler, it won't be Redick. I feel pretty confident about that. I don't think Shamet's going anywhere. Markelle Fultz, of course, a name that I think they would love to trade, but there's just absolutely no value for him at this point. What do? Just give him away for a second-round pick? At this point, I think you got to hold on. I don't think he's going to play for the Sixers again this season, but I think you just have to hold on to him at this point and wait for him to get healthy. I don't think they're going to be able to move him. Furkan Korkmaz has got a nice salary. He's expiring, which is a little bit frustrating considering how well he's playing. But he's another guy that could be in the mix to be moved. But is there any real value potential here on this team? Well, there is, depending on what they do at power forward with Wilson Chandler. Chandler's a guy who'd need about 82 minutes a game to be an effective fantasy player. And of course, he's not going to get that, especially surrounded by general soreness, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. So what sort of a player could come in there at power forward and provide that sort of value? They need to be a bit more of a shot blocker. They need to be efficient, and they need to be able to hit some threes. Now Chandler's doing okay in the shooting threes part, but he doesn't really do enough in those other areas. So that's the sort of player that we'd need to look at for them to upgrade that position. McConnell's been a solid enough asset this season. We did see with Jimmy Butler playing point guard last game a little bit of a reduction in his numbers and any other team that he goes to. Unless, I guess, if he went to a really point guard needy team, maybe he could go to Phoenix and play alongside Devin Booker. That would work for him, and those assists and steals would be really, really interesting. Although I don't know if they'd want to do that over, say, someone like D'Anthony Melton, who is basically TJ McConnell but better. Although we do know that the Phoenix Suns enjoy getting people from that went to college in Arizona, and that would fit the TJ McConnell bill pretty nicely as he went to Arizona there as well, and Robert Sarver would be all over that. So overall, when looking at this team trade deadline-wise, I don't think there's anyone who's losing value who's a 12-team league guy. Those top 4 12-team league guys, Embiid, Butler, Simmons, and Redick, they're not really going anywhere. No one's coming in who's really going to challenge them or change much of their value. It's more on the periphery, and there is an opportunity there for them to have a 5th top 150 guy in that power forward slot, much like Dario Saric was before he got traded. An opportunity for someone like that to come in and be that guy who can provide that value, because at the moment Chandler's obviously not cutting it. So he is in the mix to be moved. Korkmaz, maybe Mike Muscala. None of those guys look massively like they'd be great options on other teams. The one we'd want to look at is McConnell found himself in a larger role because his assists and steals are valuable. But apart from that, I don't think there's massive amounts happening with this Sixers team that's going to have an impact on deadline day. All right, guys, let's take a look at the Phoenix Suns. Quick check-in on them, trade deadline stuff. I don't imagine the Suns are going to be all that active in trade talks. They've made the trade already this season, getting Kelly Oubre in. Of course, they would love a point guard. What that entails or how they can get their hands on that, Lonzo Ball, Dennis Smith, although they've refuted reports that they're interested in Smith. If either of those guys ended up in Phoenix, then they would be pretty comfortable top 75 type of players, perhaps. Maybe Smith, that's a little bit of a stretch. Ball could very, very comfortably be a top 40 guy if he actually ever gets healthy and goes to Phoenix. So they're probably the ones to watch out for there. The guys who I think could be on the way out in that scenario. TJ Warren could be someone that they look to capitalize on moving on from, who has had a real renaissance this season, or resurgence as a three-point shooter, but I don't believe he's necessarily a massive part of their future. Running that Jackson, Warren, Bridges, triumvirate, and Oubre at the 2, 3, and 4 probably is superior to having Warren out there, or getting someone maybe a little bit bigger to play at that power forward position. I could see TJ being moved pretty comfortably. Troy Daniels, another guy who could be moved off this team as part of a deal. They'd love to get themselves out of Ryan Anderson. They're going to cut him at the end of the season, but if anyone wants Ryan Anderson, then he's available as well. He's not going to have an impact anywhere he goes, so don't get overly excited about that. But there is a situation there with Kokoshkov clearly not having full faith in Melton or Okobo. He's relying on 30 minutes of Jamal Crawford, which happened last game, so that's not an ideal scenario at that point guard spot. So there is an opportunity there, and I think that TJ Warren would be the most likely of these players to move. I think they should consider looking to move on from Josh Jackson. I don't fully believe in him as an NBA player, but that would all depend on the sort of player that you can get back in that sort of a discussion. They're not going to be trading away draft picks, of course, because they're going to have another top 3, top 4 type of draft pick coming this season. You don't want to move on from that unless you're getting a genuine stud Anthony Davis type player back in return, and I don't think that's going to be a realistic scenario. But there is an opportunity here for the Suns to make a move. I'm not confident they will. They've had so long to be trying to get a point guard and haven't been able to be successful in that mold. But there are a couple who are coming up as being available, and I could see some sort of moves happening. But Warren and Jackson would be the two players who I'm most thinking that they'd be more comfortable trading. Maybe Suns fans are going to disagree with that. That's just the way that I see it with this Phoenix team. Fantasy check-in time now for the Portland Trail Blazers. A bit of a focus on the trade deadline. I don't really see the Blazers being overly active. They'd love a power forward, I think. I've heard names like Nikola Mirotic be mentioned for this squad. If they could get him from the Pelicans, if they undergo some sort of wholesale sell type mode, he would be excellent on this team, and he would have tremendous value. That would mean you're getting rid of someone like the Chief Al-Farouq Aminu or Mo Harkless. Now, Aminu is solid enough as a 12-team league guy. I think him going to any other squad might really limit what he could do, although returning to the Pelicans might keep his value similar, but it all depends on what happens with Davis and with Julius Randle there. So I think he's got a risk of losing value. If they want to really swing big, someone like CJ McCollum could be moved. I really do doubt that, but I think anywhere that CJ does go, if they did move on from him, I think that there is a massive likelihood that he would get worse in that scenario. Unless they wanted to run him as a point guard, that is a possibility. I see that as being a much lower possibility of happening than, say, an Aminu or Harkless deal. They'd love to get themselves off of Myers Leonard in Portland, but who's taking him back? Although Leonard has been much improved this season, really been strong stuff from him. Nurkic isn't going anywhere. Lillard isn't going anywhere on this team. Yeah, you got the guys on the peripheries, Gary Trent and Anthony Simons. We just haven't seen anything from them because this team, refuses to use the G League and there's not enough spots in their rotation. So these guys just sit around twiddling their thumbs for the majority of the time. Seth Curry has been strong on this team as well, but they really do need, I believe, his three-point shooting in that bench unit. I don't think he's going anywhere. Jake Layman's been somewhat of a revelation at times, but he does go quiet relatively often. So I don't really see big mix-ups here, although there is that gaping hole, I believe, at power forward. And even at small forward, their forward positions, there is a huge opportunity there for someone to come in. And both those guys, Aminu and Harkless, are back-end 12-team league guys. Harkless more of a 14-team league guy. But someone who was actually good that came into that spot, there is an opportunity for some real fantasy value with that chance there for them, depending on which sort of player they go after in that scenario. But there is an opening in Portland for some fantasy value to what's the word, appear. Maybe we'll just use that because my thesaurus in my brain isn't working that well. Lastly, let's do a check-in on the Sacramento Kings, looking at the trade deadline. This is a team with a lot of cap space, a lot of ability to be able to maneuver and make some moves on this team, who has been surprising. In the end, I think they probably do miss out on the playoffs in that Western Conference, but they've been better than I anticipated this season. We've heard them mixed in plenty of rumors, third teams in deals, Enes Kanter deals, which I think is pretty much dead at this point. But there's pretty clear openings on this team. Iman Shumpert starting at small forward. There's an opening. Willie Cauley-Stein at center. I don't fully believe in him. Bielitsa at power forward. He's been strong, but Jaeger's moving the minutes all around there. Bagley, of course, is that guy in the future. So there is opportunities here for this team. Who do they look to move on from? They've got guys like Zach Randolph and Costa Koufos who are large enough salaries for matching purposes that could help in getting someone else in. There is those minutes opportunities at small forward. There's a huge chance at small forward. They've got guys like Justin Jackson who don't provide much for them, that could be, another team might be destined to think that he could be a solid enough option, which he probably isn't. You've got guys like Cauley-Stein again, who's about to hit restricted free agency, and I'm not sure he's really worth the contract he thinks he's going to be worth. So there is a few options here in Sacramento in terms of deals. Bogdanovic and Fox and Hield, they're not going anywhere. Bagley's not going anywhere. But everyone else, I think, is absolutely, or maybe Giles, but everyone else is pretty much open to be dealt on this squad, with some real opportunities there at that center position. If they want to get in the market, maybe for Nikola Vucevic of the Orlando Magic, this is one team where if the Magic do decide to trade him, he could actually come in and fit and provide similar value, maybe not exactly the same, but similar value to what he was doing in Orlando. It's not enough, though, to push them into the playoffs, I don't believe, and therefore probably be a waste of some of their assets to do that. And the Magic aren't going to be looking to take back Zach Randolph and Costa Koufos as the entire payment for dealing Vucevic to the Sacramento Kings. So while there is opportunity and they've got that ability to take on money with their cap for this season, with their cap space, I don't think that they're going to be looking to do that. They still think that they are competitive, but they still think that they're in a chance for a playoff boost. So they're not going to be really in asset accumulation mode, most likely, meaning I would guess that they stay put or maybe make a move on the fringes. Nothing that's going to have a significant impact on this squad overall for their fantasy value.